Bueno, yo soy Lola Velarde, directora ejecutiva de Política Network for Values. A lo mejor a alguno le suena porque estamos ahora un poco en la prensa de sociedad por un acto que estamos... ¿No se escucha? Por un acto que estamos organizando en el Senado y que está bajo la artillería pesada de la prensa de la cancelación. Pero hoy vengo para presentar a mi amiga de hace muchos años, que tengo el honor de conocerla, a Gudrun Kugler, que es abogada, es teóloga especializada en familia, es activista de los derechos humanos y es política. Y voy a comentar un poco todo esto con más detalle, porque cuando yo conocí a Gudrun, cuando ella era una niña, hace casi 20 años, me ha pedido que la presente en español, así, porque ella entiende el español, si hablamos despacito. Y cuando primero fue directora de una alianza de jóvenes que se llama World Youth Alliance, fue la directora para Europa, y poco después nos conocimos cuando ella lideraba junto con su marido el Observatorio contra la Intolerancia y Discriminación contra los Cristianos en Europa, con su marido Martin Kugler. Y ahí es cuando nos conocimos, porque Gudrun siempre ha estado construyendo alianzas en Europa y desde hace mucho tiempo pues trayendo a otros líderes, otros miembros de la sociedad civil de distintos países que compartíamos unos valores fundamentales, que de alguna manera son las raíces de la civilización occidental y de las que se ha hablado aquí esta mañana, ¿no? Entonces, en estos encuentros europeos es donde empezamos a conocernos, cuando todavía ella estaba en la sociedad civil. Pero pronto empezó su actividad política, primero en el Parlamento de Viena, en el Parlamento Regional de Viena, en el año 2017, donde fue elegida con un voto preferencial popular, y se dedicó a los derechos humanos, asuntos europeos y a la integración también de refugiados y migrantes. Más tarde, Gudrun saltó a la política nacional y ha sido durante varios años diputada en Austria, donde tras las últimas elecciones del domingo pasado ha vuelto a salir reelegida, así que nuestra enhorabuena, porque es algo muy bueno para Austria, sin duda, y seguramente para toda Europa, por el Partido Popular Austriaco, ¿no? Austrian People's Party. Y es la portavoz para los derechos humanos y también para los desplazados, la portavoz de su partido para derechos humanos y para los desplazados. También ha tenido un papel relevante en la OSCE, en la Organización para la Seguridad y la Cooperación en Europa, donde ha sido vicepresidenta de la Asamblea Parlamentaria de la OSCE, representante especial sobre el cambio demográfico y seguridad, y vicepresidenta del Comité de Migración también, y de un grupo con el Partido Popular Europeo, ¿no? Como nota curiosa, Gudrun además ha fundado una online dating, ¿no? Como un portal para conocer personas o novios, o en fin, no sé muy bien esto cómo se maneja, o novias online, que opera en muchos idiomas y que está siendo un gran éxito. Y como decía antes, ella también es, aparte que es doctora en Derecho Internacional, tiene estudios de teología en matrimonio y familia, y de ahí viene toda esta línea de trabajo. Como decía, otro de los temas, por ejemplo, que está realizando dentro de su actividad parlamentaria son los prayer breakfasts, que algunos habrán oído hablar de ellos, los desayunos de oración en el Parlamento austriaco y también en el Parlamento Europeo, en la que diputados o miembros elegidos de distintos lugares se reúnen en el Parlamento pues, para rezar, y se hace un gran evento una vez al año. A lo mejor nos puede hablar un poquito más de esto, pero tal vez su última aventura, gran aventura, que a mí me parece magnífica y que espero que ahora nos hable también de ella, y ya con esto acabo, es una gran iniciativa que se ha lanzado hace un poco más de hace un año, en Londres, en la que se han reunido numerosísimos líderes, tanto de la sociedad civil, líderes políticos, académicos, de medios de comunicación, religiosos y todo tipo de influencers, como llaman ellos, en una gran alianza que se llama ARC, Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, en la que se comparten pues, unos fundamentos de la civilización occidental que se considera que se están poniendo en riesgo a través de esta cultura de la cancelación y del absurdo en el que vivimos, ¿no? Y que realmente minan los pilares de la verdadera democracia y de la verdadera libertad y del verdadero Estado de Derecho. A mí me gusta mucho el planteamiento de ARC porque proponen una historia mejor, ¿no? Es a better story, dicen de él. Tenemos una historia mejor que esta tan poco motivadora que se nos está imponiendo de alguna manera, ¿no? Y para el futuro de Europa y para el futuro del mundo, porque no es solo una alianza europea, sino que está en los 5 continentes y se volverá a reunir en febrero del próximo año. Así es que ya no sigo hablando porque lo importante es que hable Gudrun y después de esta presentación, the floor is yours.
Muchísimas gracias, Lola, muy amable, yo entendí todo. Señoras y señores, lo siento muchas veces que voy a hablar en inglés, ¿sí? Pero nunca estudié español, pero yo tengo muchos amigos y un poco de familia en República Dominicana y yo admito, tenía también un novio que habla español, ¿no? Pero nunca estudié y por eso es mucho más fácil para mí hablar en inglés, ¿sí? Pero hay algo para traducción, ¿no? Si necesitan. Thank you very much for understanding that. I'm very honored to be here. I want to say a big thank you to the organizers, NEOS y CEU-CEFAS, and especially to Jaime Mayor-Recha for having me, and also Lola Velada for this very beautiful introduction. And I would like to take with you now about half an hour, 30 minutes, to look into what truth and the topic of this conference means in applied politics. I am not a philosopher, so don't judge me if I'm not using the terms perfectly, but walk with me through what it means in public life. And it's not only interesting for politicians, I think it's useful for everybody, because politics is not restricted to those voting in parliament. Politics is what all of us do together, okay? So, and I have a few things to say about the general issue, and then a few very concrete examples and what we can do. Is it okay? Okay, so we begin with the general questions. You know, there is a saying that the Western world is built on 3 hills. I don't know if you know that. What is Western identity? The West is not a geographical concept. It's not, you know, where is your continent? The West is a mindset. But where does it come from? And there is a saying, it is built on 3 hills. And the 3 hills are Rome, Athens, and Jerusalem, right? So Rome for Roman law and for the rule of law. Athens for Greek philosophy and democracy. And Jerusalem, Golgotha, for the Judeo-Christian vision of the human person. Now you take the 3 together, and then you suddenly see who we are and what is deep down in our souls, what are our most important convictions, and what helped us to make Europe such a great place. We have built universities, and we have written incredibly beautiful legal books, codes of law. We have created art, we have built cathedrals on these 3 hills. But today we see that Western identity seems to be crumbling into little pieces. What is left of it? And Cardinal Newman once said, every time has its own heresy, right? So you could translate this saying, in every time there is something that's wrong, and people can see there's a certain blindness. So the main question for us today is, in 100 years, what will people say about us? What is our blindness? What do we not see? You know, you could look at me and say, oh, Austria, Germany, what, did you not see that you shouldn't kill Jewish people? And I mean, no, society didn't see it, right? Or 100 years ago, did you not see that women should also be allowed to vote? No. And before that, did you not see that you shouldn't enslave anybody, right? So what is it that we do not see in our time? And if you look at the 3 hills and you ask this question, I would like to walk with you through the hills and maybe look at things we do not see. So look at the first hill, Rome. The Capitol, Roman law. This is about truth codified in the law. And today we see a number of legal fictions, impossibilities that we pour into the law. I will give you some striking examples. I know that examples are sometimes difficult, and then you will disagree with one and you will disagree with another one, but just help me, walk with me. So, for example, freedom of speech. So you see what was happening to Lola's transatlantic summit in the last few days in Spain. Where did the human right of freedom of speech and assembly for everyone go? Aren't we the human rights champions? But allegedly, freedom of speech is trumped by freedom from hearing things you don't want to hear, right? Or abortion, more and more is called a human right. But don't we have in our human rights catalogs something that says there's a right to life? That is very strange, no? The legal status of the unborn baby depends on whether the mother wants it or not. So if the mother wants the baby, it has full legal protection. If the mother doesn't want it, it has no legal protection. That is very strange in the law. Those of you who are lawyers, you're like, what? Or with regards to children from coming from same-sex couples. You know what we just did in Austria, forced by the Constitutional Court. And I just want to say the word Constitutional Court activism. So if a baby is born from one woman and her partner is a woman, the law presumes that the other parent is the other woman, right? Which genetically is not possible. But that's what the law now says. You see, this is why I call it legal fiction. If you can get therapy if you want to strengthen your homosexuality, strengthen it, and we will pay for it. But if you want to strengthen your heterosexuality, we will take the therapist and put him to prison. Is it called a double standard? And so on and so forth. With regards to gender issues, you could say, so our sex, our gender is the right word in English, can be freely chosen, right? So whatever, you choose. But your sexual orientation is set in stone. Don't we confuse hardware and software here? All of this perfectly enshrined in the law of most of European countries. There is a great philosopher in Switzerland, Fabrice Hajjaj, and he said, today we speak not so much of a heresy of truth. This is the topic of our conference. But he said we should speak of a heresy of love. Because all of these things we do under a pretense of care and love. So we say, oh, you're pregnant and the child is handicapped. Because we love you, we will help you have an abortion because you don't want that poor child to live, it's handicapped. And we don't want that poor parents have to raise a handicapped child. So because we love you, we will give you an abortion. Oh, you're old and weak and lonely. So because we love you, we will kill you. It's about love. And the politician who says no looks merciless and cruel. So you can see what happens to Christianity. The Christian message is becoming cruel in this context. And no wonder people are running away from the churches. So this is a heresy of love because it is a complete misunderstanding of love. I could give you so much more. We don't have time for this, but I I go through this every single day, these discussions. So I've not only learned them, but I felt them. So let's look to Athens. The hill of Greek democracy is called the Areopag. It's very small, it's next to the Acropolis. So truth nowadays is challenged not only by like these strange ideas I just told you about, but it's also challenged by anti-democratic behavior. And you're much closer to this than I am, but when you look into Latin America, then the left says that the right is anti-democratic, right? And we have this a little bit in Central Europe, not as strongly. And then we're always like, oh my God, the center-right is anti-democratic, oh, that's so dangerous. But more and more it seems to me that it is actually the left that is anti-democratic. And here are my examples for you. My best friend in the Austrian parliament is a green, radical, feminist lesbian, right? Her hair is standing up like this. She is, on many things, she thinks very different from me. But we have found each other as two authentic people, and we are friends, are very good friends. So she came to me and she said, hey, there is something wrong with our understanding of man and woman. She says, us lesbians, we are being targeted by men who say they are women and they want to be part of our lesbian club. But we don't want these men in our club. She says, our rights that we have fought for so many years are being stolen. And then she says, if I would speak up against it, they would kill me. I would be dead, she says, within hours. But she means socially. You realize that people who discuss these issues suffer from social discrimination, leading all the way up to social death. It is a form, almost you could say, of persecution. So she says, this is important, she says, for 20 years, we, the radical left, we have made perfect our social destruction machines. And I don't want to get in front of the machine, right? So she says, you will do it, and I will feed you all the information you need. That was our deal. Later, she came out and she said, no, I have to speak up. It's just too terrible. And now she was voted out of our parliament on Sunday because she did not align with the left, anti-democratic. But so a social destruction machine that a dissenter doesn't want to get into crossfire of, right? What's wrong with our democracy if we are afraid of saying what we think? And that's already happening to the left. It's been happening to Lola for many years. So then I had two radical feminists, about 60 years old, you know how they look. So came, asked me for an appointment. Super interesting. I'm like, yes, please come. And they came and they said, so we have two things to discuss with you. First, we want to apologize to you because we thought for 10 years you are a fascist. But we know you are not, because now they are calling us fascists, right? And so for me, it's also not nice and fun to run around being called a fascist, right? I'm an authentic Christian Democrat. Why would you call me a fascist? But it is a tool of anti-democratic behavior, activism. So they say, we are very sorry, now we understand that. And the second question is, can we work together? And so now my best friends are all these radical lesbians. I'm an honorary member of the club. And this is how we are successful, working across the aisle, right? Not just with your own friends, but with everybody you can partner. So cancel culture, you understand the term, right? I don't need to explain. There are many more things to be said about this, but I'll skip it for time. And I just want to help you see that that if we do not guard our democracy and our basic freedoms, they could also be lost in our generation. So democracy and understanding of human rights and freedom has to be learned by every generation. And I think by such things as social destruction machines and cancel culture, they are harmed. So let's look briefly into the third hill, Jerusalem, Golgotha, the Judeo-Christian vision of the human person. So, you know, I'm very touched by Nietzsche, who wrote this piece on the madman. Do you know this? The madman, the crazy man, from Nietzsche. And he says he goes with a lantern in the night on the main square, and he's like, I'm looking for God. And people say, you're crazy. It's like, you killed him. And then he gives a speech. And he says, how could we drink up the sea? Who gave us a sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? Right? Do you know a sponge cleaning thing? To wipe away the entire horizon. This is Nietzsche, it's not a Christian philosopher. So horizon means something to hold on to, like a moral standard, right? And it's gone. You know, and if you lose the vision of if you lose a common vision of the human person, then society has no common direction. Society to function needs common transcendence. You don't have to go to church every day, but you have to have a common understanding of what we are doing here. And if we lose it, we lose our strength. We see it happening right now. And so the death of God, right, takes away the inner strength of Europe. And you know Jordan Peterson, right? Those of you who are listening to me in English now will know him. We had dinner mid-July in London. And he took his glass of water. As you know, he only drinks water. And he gave a long speech of why the idea of Nietzsche, end of God, is now over. Right? It's like, this is it. Like, it's not working, and people start to see it. He takes his glass and says, let us drink to the end of God. Right? And this is the new thing. This is what is coming. And I'm not speaking from a religious perspective. You know, that's up to everybody. That's up to you. But I'm speaking from a societal perspective. That experiment is not going very well. You know, and the reason why you can see it's not going very well is because the influence and the status of Europe is dramatically shrinking. Look at Europe on the world market. Diminishing. It's still there, but weaker. Look at, can Europe defend itself? No. Can Europe feed itself? Hardly. Do we have medication? What if China doesn't want to send us antibiotics anymore? Do you know what will happen? We will all die. Because there's only a last plant in Europe that produces antibiotics. That's not enough for everybody. That's actually in Austria. We are very careful not to let it close. But if China decides not to send us any more medications, that's it. The last one will switch off the light if we can still make it out of bed. So our population rate is going down. You see it in Spain. We see it everywhere. Don't quote me. This is an ugly comparison. But you know, if you have a beautiful zoo and you have flamingos, and the flamingos don't have any children, any babies anymore, there's something wrong, right? So the doctor will come and think about what's wrong with the flamingos. So what is wrong with us Europeans? You know what it means? If you take a birth rate, let's say you take migration out and you have a birth rate of 1, you know what it means? So you have grandparents, 2 and 2. Each one has 1 child. And the 2 children have together 1 child, which means in 2 generations you go from 4 people to 1. Well, good luck. But this is happening right now. Do you hear anyone talk about this? Isn't this an issue? Should we maybe talk about this and not about transgender toilets? Europe is no longer attractive to the world. My foreign minister said 20 years ago, 80% of all countries wanted to be like Europe. The whole world, 80%. Europe, this is it. Today, he says, it's only 20% left. Because we are not managing well, right? And you know what happens for those who turn away from Europe? They turn into dark authoritarianism. So for the people, for the for the peoples in these countries, it means less freedom, less participation, no democracy. And this because we are being, excuse me, stupid, right? So a lot more to be said. We also have a mental health crisis. You know that? Do you have this in Spain for young people? I can tell you, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, we have about 25% of youth with a diagnosis, a fourth. So, is there something wrong? Well, obviously. Is anyone asking what is wrong? Well, nobody. So, in my parliament, they say, oh, today we will discuss whether it is legitimate or not to put teenagers that have a mental crisis that is so bad that they need to go to hospital, whether we can put them in the ward of adults, because the youth wing is full. So we have a debate, like half a day, if that's okay or not. We are not fast enough building more hospitals. So I get out there and I say, I demand a causal study. I want data. What's wrong? Why do we need another hospital for youth, for psychological problems? So the answer I get is, we cannot do a causal study because the results of the causal study we would never want to implement. Do you see what's wrong here? So truth in politics, well, the truth in politics would be the first thing is to go after getting these results to help the affected children and youth. Many more things I'm skipping. So, you see the three hills, how they are challenged, how we Europeans do not know anymore who we are, and how it makes us less attractive or not attractive anymore at all. This should be a big discussion, but nobody looks at this. But now when we go one step further, part 2, what is truth in politics? It's a difficult term. When I was thinking about today, I was like, not so easy to get my head around. But I come to an approximation, trying to draw near. So I asked my friend from the far right, yesterday we were at a conference in Dublin, I said, hey, so what do you think about truth in politics? And I mean, I'm quoting him, I'm not giving you his name, but this is honestly what he said to me yesterday. He said, oh, politics is not about what is true. It's about the reaction of the people to whatever you say, right? That is very sad. Then I talked to, yesterday night, we had dinner with members of parliament from Germany and Switzerland. I asked them the same question. I said, so what is truth in politics? It was 10 people, very nice dinner in Dublin. The Germans said, oh, truth in politics. You know, when we look back to Corona, we invited scientists to the parliament because we wanted to do what is right. But then we invited 3 scientists. One said we should do this, the other one said we should do that, and the third one said, oh, I don't know. So what do we do, right? So it's not so easy. There isn't, in many cases, this one truth. So how do we answer this problem? And I have a path for you, if you like it. First point, look into patterns in creation, patterns, and then you might find ways, right? And you remember C.S. Lewis once said, there's a manual for the human person. Like a manual, when you buy something, it tells you how to use it. If there's a manual for the human person, we are getting close to a pattern. This is highly relevant for politics. But the best way of explaining this idea of a pattern is Pope Benedict XVI giving a speech in the German parliament in 2011. 20 minutes, please watch it, it's online, it's translated, you can read it. And he says there's something that is super important for my political life. And it answers the question about truth in politics. Pope Benedict says, the most traumatic problem of Europe, what is that? Is this. We have learned, he says, from the Greens, that every living being has something that is ecological. And we need to respect it. We have learned this. So, for example, a polar bear needs, whatever it needs, penguins to eat or ice things to swim with. And we respect it. But he says the biggest mistake Europe has made is that we have not concluded the same thought is also true for the human being. Right? So I have a long quote here. He just says, man too has a nature that he must respect and cannot manipulate at will. Man is not merely self-creating freedom. And so on. So there is a pattern. What is the pattern? This is now, something to find out. Community needs sacrifice. Children need the best possible care and education. Children, it's good when a child is actually born, right? When it's there already. And it's good when it's raised by the two people who made it. How about that? And so on and so forth. And the name of the speech Pope Benedict gave is the Listening Heart Reflections. So he says, you will understand the pattern by listening. You will also understand the pattern by looking into sociological data. Because you know what? There's a lot of psychologically sick youth in my country. Now you wonder why. Okay, second point. I ask politicians not to use facts or truths in their own selection randomly. My dear friends in Spain, Austrians go to Spain to get anonymous donations for eggs and sperm. This is terrible, excuse me. And you are affecting our country. This is totally illegal in Austria. How can you possibly allow people to get an anonymous egg donation? I mean, how will this poor child ever find their biological parents? This is, you know what? This is against human rights. Are you a nation respecting human rights? Well, I guess there's a lot of politicians that run around and say, human rights, human rights. Well, here we go. Knowing who is your genetic origin is a human right, and you can read it in the Declaration of the Convention of the Rights of the Child. Are you discussing this? You should. It's not only interesting for Spain, because it's Austrians going to Spain. It's totally upsetting. You need to make a register for gamete donations for human rights. And in this case, those who speak about human rights, they are using human rights selectively. They are using it when they like to use it. Is that truthful? No. Okay, then, politicians, be a little bit less voluntarily ambiguous. You know what it means? It's like them saying, we all need to do more. This could be better. We need to find good solutions. Okay, hello, are you wasting my time? Say something. Voluntarily ambiguous. Also the good people, because it's easier. If I say, this needs to be done better, everyone will agree. But I wasted everybody's time. And then, my dear politicians, respect red lines. So I get asked a lot whether I have to compromise a lot in my function as a politician. And you know what? First of all, I have to say the word compromise is not a negative word. So we make compromises all the time. I'm like, Lola says, speak for 10 minutes. I say, I speak for 1 hour. Then we say, okay, I speak for 30. That's a compromise. She didn't say that. That's a compromise. But then there's also a bad form of compromise, immoral, that crosses red lines, that is more a pact with the devil than some meaningful solution. And for me in politics, I make compromises all the time, but I will never cross the red line. And sometimes people put a lot of pressure on me, right? They say, you have to, this will have terrible consequences if you don't. You have to be very strong in these moments. You know that human rights are the enshrined red line, right? But now we also have to respect them and not use them selectively or interpret them however we want. But human rights are the red line. And we need more politicians who will say, I cannot do this. And Austria and Germany, when we were killing the Jews, we would have needed some politicians who say we cannot do this, right? And remember that the Pope Francis visited the grave of King Baudouin 3 days ago or so, 4 days ago, and he wants to make him a saint because he said, I cannot sign the abortion law. And we need people who have a lot of we cannot, because otherwise everything, is being sold out. The Polish bishops were asked by the communists back then whether they could cooperate. The Czech bishops were also asked by the communists. The Czech bishop said, okay, we will protect our people, right? Because the price was, if you do not cooperate, you will not go to universities, we will arrest you and kill you at liberty. Polish bishops sent a letter to all faithful, read in the churches on Sunday, and the letter began with the words, non possumus, we cannot. This is so important, right? So you say, you know what, we would love to cooperate because I don't want my people to go to jail or not to be able to go to university, but we cannot. I say to my party leader, I don't want to cause a problem. I want to be friends with all of you, but I cannot. Non possumus. And it will make you safe. I'm so sad that I'm cutting everything short. I wanted to tell you. Okay. Yeah. No, I am. That's good. So, politics. That's just a few things for politics, right? And maybe you can take some inspiration. But I also have something for you, who are not politicians, maybe some of you. So, I have 3 recommendations for you. What can we all do in this debate? First, Douglas Murray, who you might know, an English thinker on YouTube. Douglas Murray was asked, why is this all so crazy, this public debate thing? Why does it not make any sense? Where is truth? And he said, it's a super answer. He said, the reason why all of this is going so crazy is because, listen, all adults left the room. Okay? So please don't leave the room. So I have a friend in my parliament who is a super famous lawyer, like the most intelligent lawyer in the country. And he's obviously in the committees in parliament, only in the very important committees, like economics and justice. And I go to the stupid equality committee, right? Because somebody needs to be there. So one day, sorry, I take the word stupid back, I'm sorry. I'm in the very, very renowned and prestigious equality committee. And he would never, he says, no, this is for me, I'm not going there, I'm a lawyer, I'm important. So one day we had a debate on a thing that is very sensitive and I really needed his help. So that as a lawyer, he would come in and say, why this is not possible. And I said, can you please go one time, instead of me, and explain. And he said, this is so stupid, I will definitely not go there, not 1 minute of my life. So then I had to go and explain. And I could explain, but it would have been much better he had done it. But he says, are you crazy? I'm not going there. But this is the wrong approach. So you guys need to go into these rooms and argue. Second point, stop lying. And you will have Rod Dreher speak here tomorrow. This is his big point. I got it from him. It's so great. So Solzhenitsyn, when he was arrested in 1974, and when he was sent to America, the same day he released a paper that said, let each man choose, will you remain a servant of lies, or has the time come for you to stand straight as an honest man? And it says, promise me that you will stop lying, meaning that you will not write, sign, or publish anything that distorts the truth. Promise that you will not raise a hand to vote in favor of a proposal which you do not support sincerely. Promise that you will walk out of a session where lies are being said. And unless you have to discuss, I just said. And promise that you will not buy a newspaper that is spreading lies. and so on. And he said, if a handful of people do this, communism will crumble. And I think, obviously, we are in different times, but if you take that, if you stop clapping, it's not so easy. I had the last 3 days, I was at an OSCE conference in Dublin. Everybody is like, yes. So, and I'm like, no. And everybody looks at me. And it'd be much nicer if I also could just a little bit, but no. And he doesn't here say, well, go out and preach. He just says, stop lying. Stop buying the newspaper. Stop watching the television program. This would bring down communism, he said. So, but yes, it could harm your career. It harmed mine. I mean, I still have a career, but I'm not a minister of state because of that. So, you are aware of the concept of the silent majority, yes, and of the spiral of silence. So then please remember that. It's very easy to break through that just by somebody saying something. You remember the fairy tale, The Emperor's New Clothes? Is it known here in Spain? So it was a 5-year-old who said, hey, he's naked, and we need the voice. Is it pleasant? No, but it's not about, pleasure. It's necessary to do it. So I ask you, you do this, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But we need more of those voices to break through the spiral of silence, because others will rally behind you. I just said to Lola in the break, it's her and me, we have to walk through walls, right? And then others can walk behind us. It is not fun. I had no nicer things to do. So for you, write letters to the editor, speak up in meetings, send emails to politicians every day. So the scouts, have the rule, every day one good deed. Well, that's what you need to do. And then I'm coming to the end, Lola. Here's my last thought. Let's see what I shouldn't. So John Paul II wrote an essay, and it was published after he died. And it was very important for me. He said there, nature always retains its capacity for the good. This means that the lie is expensive. It costs money and effort for people to remember the lie. But truth is like, right? So with a lot fewer people and less money, you can go further. And we know in history that on the long run, truth wins. Look at the 20th century, rightly called the outbreak of great evil. We had 60 million dead people. It was Nazism and communism. Nobody ever speaks, however, of the fact that the 20th century was also the century in which the outbreak of the great evil has been overcome. Did you think that? Communism, 4 generations, no education of any sort that is humanistic, Christian, anything. Propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. 4 generations. The kids didn't even have grandmothers who remembered something else. And they, in 89, they walk out of this, close the door and say, nah, that's not right. Truth will stick in people's hearts. So the question is how long it takes. This is why NEOS and CEU-CEFAS organize this conference, that it goes faster. So stay in the room, stop lying, and break through the spiral of silence so that our 3 hills will be revived and the people unified and society can flourish. And now some people say, but the personal price is very high. That's true. It is very high. But you know what? It is a time of testing. It is a huge adventure. And when you do this, you will find best friends that you can walk with. You will have a super interesting life. You will be a hero. That's nice. And you will participate in limiting evil. Hello, who wouldn't want that? I mean, look at all the movies we watch, right? Batman, Spider-Man, right? Do you want to be a hero? Well, it's not so difficult. And Jordan Peterson has an email signature. When he sends an email, there's something that says it in every email, and it says, "Truth is the antidote to suffering." Truth is the antidote to suffering. So you would think that serving the truth would cause suffering. In truth, it's the antidote to suffering. Thank you very much.